Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. So I have one quick announcement before I talk about the interview we have today, and that is training, specifically training with Into 3 Fitness through our Garage Gym Athlete programming. Now, right now, all of our athletes are finishing out a 12-week cycle, and that's typically how we operate, as in a 12-week cycle. They're retesting their numbers, and we are about to get started after this week on a new strength challenge. It's only going to be 4 weeks long, and I want to invite everyone who listens to this podcast to be a part of this strength challenge, because we all know being stronger helps in every area of your life, and I really I want to have fun with this one. You know, have a challenge, actually have the leaderboard in our app and see who's gaining the most strength and who's doing what. I think it's just going to be a lot of fun for our community, and we have a lot of fun in our Facebook group too. So if you're interested in this 4-week challenge we have, it's starting next week, then you need to go get an invitation to join our programming. You can't just join at any time. We make you go through an invitation process because we like to onboard our athletes properly. I like to schedule a call with you where I can talk to you, about within a week or two of you joining up. And that's why we go through this invitation process. And if you want to do that, you're interested in doing that, what you need to do is go to garagegymathlete.com. There's a button on that page. It's the only button on that page. Click that, enter your email, and then you will be entered in to get your invite. And over the course of the next couple days, we will send you an invitation, and you can join up. And you need to do that now if you want to be invited and in Garage Gym Athlete before the strength cycle starts. So that's what I'm telling you now. You got your fair warning. If you're interested in that, go do it right now, garagegymathlete.com. Click the button, enter your email. If not, don't worry about it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep working out. Keep doing something. Take on our challenges, or maybe do some of the challenges that Dr. Justin Brink talks about today. Now, Dr. Justin Brink, he's a chiropractor, awesome dude. You know, he's way different than any other chiropractor I have ever talked to. I had a lot of fun doing this interview because we talk about power taping. Maybe you've seen some athletes putting tape on their muscles and stuff. We talk about what that's all about and how it works. We talk about the self-healing properties and principles of the body. We talk about barefoot running. We talk about imbalances leading to dysfunctional movement patterns. So maybe you are squatting, on putting too much weight on your right leg and then not really noticing it and what that can lead to over the long haul. We talk about a lot of different stuff. Of course, he gets the quickfire questions and he answers the question on what it takes to become a better human. So, without any further ado, let's listen to this podcast with Dr. Justin Brink. All right, Justin, I'm super glad to have you on the Better Humanology podcast. I've been doing a little research, getting prepared for this one, but before we get into that, I want to say welcome and just thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
How we start, we throw every guest, right into the fire here at Better Humanology. So if you could give us, let's start with a fitness challenge for all the listeners out there today.
Fitness challenge, something I've been giving all of my clients is do not sit on your couch.
Okay, like at all?
At all.
Okay, awesome.
So what I mean by that is you want to sit, but you can't sit. So if you can go to the nth degree, that means no sitting at your kitchen table, no sitting, on the couch, on the recliner. Everything's on the ground.
So you can sit on the ground. You just can't sit on any of the comfy places.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And how about a mental toughness challenge?
Mental toughness, that's one and the same because your brain wants to tell you to sit on that couch because it's sitting 2 feet away from you.
Okay, awesome. And how about a book recommendation?
Book. So I just finished reading The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen, I think it's Lakhani. Excellent book, just sort of, teaching you how to create new rules for your own life.
Okay, cool. And is it kind of like self-mastery type book?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate that. I haven't read that book. I'm definitely going to check it out. And I love the no sitting challenge. I do want to ask, given your background. Is there any particular reason you think we shouldn't be sitting on comfortable places, but the ground's okay?
Well, so, my big thing here is movement, and that's sort of what I've built my practice and stuff on, is movement. And when we sit on that couch, we just sit for way too long. Our body becomes comfortable. So when you sit on the ground, nothing is comfortable when you're sitting on the ground. So you move every few minutes. And by moving, your body always has to adapt to that new movement.
All right, awesome. Okay, man, and I do, before we get too far into any questions or anything, I do want to give you a minute. Maybe tell us your background, what you're doing now, give the listeners a feel for, who you are and what you do.
So background, started degree biology, was going to go dental school, went to the dental school route. My dad's a dentist, and decided that, once I got in, that didn't want to dig in people's mouths all day long. And so path sort of took a different route. I worked on golf courses for a couple of years. I taught high school for 4 years and actually played water polo with a couple of chiropractors, injured myself, went in, had my first adjustment. I was like, wow, that actually helped, and had an application, went to school, 10 years later, here I am. And it's sort of been an amazing journey since then. Done a lot of things, in those 10 years. So quick and dirty.
Yeah, that is the quick and dirty. So what are some of maybe give me one thing that you're most proud of in your career the last 10 years?
Was definitely instrumental, at the very beginning stages, helping develop the rock tape, and so their whole educational process. So, myself and Greg Vandendries, who's the owner of Rock Tape, and then Steve Capobianco, I got to work, side by side with both of those guys, from day one. So that was fun.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was doing some research for the podcast, that you're involved with Rock Tape, and you're also the co-author of the book Power Taping Movements
Correct.
and Not Muscles.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit. I've been sent a few samples of Rock Tape before and some other brands. Can you give me the lowdown on taping?
So taping is going to create a sort of a sensory stimulation, right? So, just in my clinic here, I know that tape is not going to fix anything, but if we can change the way the brain is now thinking in regards to that movement pattern or that abnormal movement pattern, now we slap a piece of tape on there and it creates that extra stimulus. So we can sort of downregulate some of that pain and sort of upregulate, better movement habits, then the body is able to move better through, whether it's a CrossFit, it's a regular workout, it's just daily movement, at work, whatever it might be. So in essence, that's what we're trying to do, is just promote better movement.
Okay, and so does it actually helps from a physiological standpoint, but it is also like a corrective measure? Is that what you're saying? Like it
Definitely.
Like if you're like, okay, I'm out of position here, and then the tape would feel a certain way, and so you're like, okay, I need to correct that position.
Yeah, if we, we can apply stretch to tape, because the tape does stretch. And, let's say someone with bad posture, right? And they've got those forward shoulders, and then we can slap a piece of tape on their back, but we can apply a little bit more tension to to their back if we chose to. So when the tape pulled a little bit tighter, then what does the brain feel? It's like, okay, that's an abnormal sensation. I don't like that sensation. So now what's it going to do? It's going to help retract those shoulders. So when those shoulders now retracted, the tape goes back to sort of what normal is, and it likes what normal. Well, that's putting you into a better position. So now we can pattern that position over time.
That's really cool. And do you do this for a lot of athletes?
Athletes, weekend warriors, your mom and your pops, all the above.
That's cool. And do you think that someone needs like an expert to be able to do this, or do you think that's something you can learn to do, to tape yourself or teach your wife or husband or something?
Oh, you can. Yeah, it's not rocket science by any means.
Okay.
You can definitely teach yourself. Just, one of the big things that we see is, someone that hasn't taped a lot, they might put a little bit too much overstretch, and it just creates a skin irritation, so that's what we see the most. Okay,
cool. And I want to hop back to maybe your dentistry to chiropractic journey real fast, because that's, not the biggest of leaps in the world, but still a pretty big leap. So, you said you didn't like digging in mouths, but what was it that made you switch from, because you went from a passion, it seems like you kind of fell in love with chiropractic, and you said you had that adjustment that fixed you, but I feel like there has to be a little bit more to the story, maybe why you were fascinated with chiropractic and why you really made that switch to making a full-time career out of what you're doing now?
So, I've always been in the healthcare, I've, whether it's fitness related, again, like I said, my dad's a dentist, so I think I grew up around it my entire life. So I figured, well, heck, I'll just end up taking over his practice someday. And I think that was sort of the easy thing to go and do. But once I got into it, realized that, yeah, there's no passion. It's just at that point, it just became a job, and just something just to, okay, that's my goal. My goal is to be a dentist. But it wasn't there for me. But again, sort of the movement and just my own journey through just being an athlete. And then once, again, I got adjusted because I had injured my back. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm 70+% better. And all he did is just crack my back. I was like, that was pretty cool. So again, doing my own research on it and seeing, okay, there's all different aspects of what chiropractic is. And, sort of what I do in my clinic is probably maybe 5% of our total population of chiropractors. But, once I got into school and realized, hey, I have a passion for this, but it was trying to take it to, again, just a whole different realm and being very progressive, in our field.
And what do you mean by what you're doing is only 5% of what your industry is doing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, a lot of them are, if you want to call them, just rack them and crack them, right? You come on in, you get adjusted, and you go out the door. So, my visits in here are 20+ minutes long, and you can stay longer by seeing another associate and stuff as well. And what we do is we take you through whether it's a soft tissue modality or now it's all corrective exercise based and it's movement based. So what we really try and do is hone in on your abnormal movements, whatever that might be, and fix based on, okay, is it restricted because the soft tissue is what's restricted? Is it a neurological condition, meaning, you've just been moving a certain way for so long and you feel like you're tight, and so that becomes more of a CNS problem. And then again, trying to tease out which one it might be and then give you, corrective exercises based on, what your body needs.
Okay. And I have to ask this question because, So my wife and I, we love chiropractic care. Like I said, in her family, we have an uncle and his wife, they're also chiropractors. But
yeah.
On my side of the family, my dad, and he listens to this podcast, so I'm doing this just for him. But he's kind of scared of chiropractors.
Yeah.
And I want to know your thoughts on that and if he has a legitimate fear or not.
I mean, I think there's always a legitimate fear. I get it. Actually, I get it quite often here in the office. They say, I hate what you do, but so-and-so said, come in and see you, blah, blah, blah. So I think for me, the biggest thing is educating them, and you educate them as to why we can help you out, and if there is that fear, and we can sort of calm that fear, then I walk them through every step that I take them through. So there's no surprises by any means. And a lot of people freak out just because of the neck being adjusted. It's cracking, you hear it, it's next to the ears. But I think the education part is huge on their end to try and, again, calm those nerves.
Okay, cool. And I think I'll make sure that he listens to this one. I'll make sure it's in his queue. And I'm trying to get him to go. He's had a few back issues here and there, and I really want him to go get adjusted, but he won't listen to me, So
yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit more about the body's ability to heal itself. That's something I read, and I thought it was really cool on your site. And you said that was one of the things that fascinated you was the self-healing ability of the body. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's I've had plenty of injuries in my past. I've my first major injury at 31 or so was I tore my left ACL. And I had, I thought that I was the strongest I'd ever been at that point. I was able to dunk a basketball and whatever, and all I did is catch a pass and pivoted, and my knee buckles in half. And, at that point really got me on my road to, rehab and why the body does what it does, or doesn't do what it does, for that matter. And so the healing process is, the better you move, obviously the better you're going to feel. And stuff I tell my clients all the time is, we don't get stiffer because we get older. We get stiffer because we stop moving right. And so if we're not moving well, it's like you go back to that kid. When does a kid ever really warm up for any activity? They really don't. They just go and they play. And why don't we play anymore? Why don't we move, how we're supposed to? So the better off that we move, then again, our tissues don't have to be restricted. The tissues don't have to be restricted. Our body can heal at a rate, faster than someone else's. So that's just been fascinating for me. Again, over the years, like I said, I tore my left ACL. I tore my right one 4 years ago playing soccer, and that one's still torn to this day, but it doesn't really affect me doing anything, and I have zero pain. And I had back surgery 5 years ago, and same thing. I had a 20 millimeter like disc extrusion at L5S1 with zero pain. So I think it's, when your body can move in a certain way or move well, then you can have these issues and really not even know that you have these issues if you want to go down that route.
Yeah, and that's something I'm very interested in because, and to be honest, I feel like it's gaining more traction in the strength and conditioning world, or functional movement world, should I say, that this developing these dysfunctional movement patterns, right, is squatting, putting more weight on your left leg as opposed to your right legs, and it developing these huge imbalances, and they can wrap around your whole body. Is this something that you see a lot of in your practice?
We see a ton of it. Yeah, I mean, from my, like I said, my weekend warriors to a lot of the professional athletes that I treat, especially the professional athlete. I mean, we see so many compensating patterns with them. It's crazy. They're just amazing at how well they cheat versus the normal person,
Right.
But it's crazy. You see these imbalances, and yet they're able to work with these imbalances at such a high level.
And what do you think the best way to, let's say, prevent those imbalances? If maybe you feel like you don't have a ton now, or you got checked out and you said you're good to go, what's the best way to prevent getting any?
Again, going back to the, sort of the fitness challenge, is like sitting, moving, right? We are so used to just sitting in a chair these days and not really doing anything for hours on end. Yet you want to go into a workout, and in the workout, what do? We create variability all the time. But our 8 to 5, there is no variability. So our body's going to adapt to what we do the most. And that's sitting on our butt. So if we can get away from that and, start creating change, the tissue has to change as well. So again, you go back into your workout. Well, if your daily habits have been changing all day long, and now all of a sudden your workout is going to do the same exact thing, the tissue is going to slowly start to adapt and like, okay, we don't have to work as hard this direction. So let's help on both sides now.
That's pretty cool. And what do you think that? Let me ask you personally. What do you do, kind of on maybe a daily routine to, stay injury free? What does your daily movement consist of, or maybe your fitness? What are you doing these days?
So fitness changes all over so I took about 8 months off of like working out, like weights wise, and I did nothing but body weight stuff. I jumped into like kin stretch and animal flow. Those were my two biggest ones that I did pretty much from last December 2015 to almost, I want to say it was like right around October-ish, November of just this past year, 2016. And so just gaining control of what my body can actually do, getting my hips to open up, getting, my back, making sure that I can articulate my spine, making sure that my shoulders actually work like shoulders. So on a daily basis, and this is something I tell my clients is like, they ask for sets and reps all the time. And I said, your brain doesn't work in sets and reps, it works in patterns. So however long it takes you to get yourself out of that pattern, that's the amount of sets and reps you get to do. So me working with all my clients, I'm down on the ground with them doing the same exact exercise they do. So I'm doing this 20 plus times a day. And that right there forces me into just priming my system all day long. But now it's ready for me when I do work out. That now my warm up consists of about 2 or 3 or 5 minutes, whatever it might be, of just again getting my joints to work again. And then I jump right into my workout.
Okay. And in your practice, what are some of you said you're working with people all day, every day, and doing some of the movements. So is there like a commonality between maybe an imbalance or issue that you see a lot of over and over that possibly has you doing that movement? So you're like, ultra prep for it?
Yeah. So, I mean, something that I'm big into right now is really getting the feet and getting your hips to work, and everyone that walks in my office, I make them take their shoes and socks off and make them see their feet. I mean, no one ever looks at their feet. Since we're about a year old, we strap shoes and socks on them, and yet every exercise we potentially do is always on our feet. And so if our base of support is already dysfunctional, what really is going to happen up the rest of the body? Everything has to become, working overtime or compensating for the lack of, of a structure down below. So it's really trying to get their feet to work for them instead of working against them. We see a lot of people that overpronate, and I read something that like 98% of the population that overpronate, it's due to weak feet, so the feet aren't, because they're flat, it's because they're lazy. So, really getting them to get that arch support back and getting the intrinsic muscles to fire again has been, huge on my end. And then, work up the chain, go to the hip. So many people just don't have range of motion through the hip joint when it's a nice ball and socket joint. And it's just so stuck because we want a pattern one way of moving, and that's sitting in a chair all day long. And then we go to the gym and we squat, which is the same exact position, but no one can ever break 90 degrees. So we wonder, why we're starting to create, hip and low back and knee and, all these other different issues.
And going back to the feet thing, are you an advocate of barefoot running or barefoot running, like the shoes and stuff?
Advocate for it, yes, but there's a process to it, and I do have a lot of people that go from running with these nice cushioned shoes to, I want to go barefoot running now. Well, no, there's a transition. You don't go to the gym and lift 350 pounds the first day in, so it's this process that you have to get your body to work again for you and not just jump into it, because if you do, you can end up with a slew of other issues, plantar fasciitis, Achilles issues, knee issues, pulls here or there. So so I am an advocate for it, and but there's a process for it.
Yeah, I know when I was in the military and those like barefoot shoes first came out, a lot of guys just jumped straight to it and tried to keep their same running schedule and ended up with all sorts of little problems here and there.
Oh yeah,
stress fractures and like all this crazy stuff. What's the process that you would have people go through to from super ultra comfortable running shoe to like a barefoot Vibram type shoe?
First thing is just around their house, just go barefoot, and just start to increase the time that you are, that you're barefoot. I mean, the feet have something like 400,000 receptors on the bottom of your feet. Just, let's get those things stimulated again. Start to do some exercises, get the toes to work, try and get the toes to work, independent. I just the other day, I saw something across like Facebook, and it was a sock that was like free your feet. And they said, it's got the strongest, sole there is. It's like something stronger than steel. So I ordered a pair of those, and, I wear them now when I'm working out. I've got a gym here in my office, so which is nice. And so I'll wear them, doing that versus just the Vibrams that I had before.
Oh, cool. What was the name of those socks?
Free Your Feet.
Free Your Feet. Okay.
Yeah, FYF, Free Your Feet. I think they're out of like the UK.
Okay, I'm going to definitely have to check those out. All right, that's cool, man. And so now moving up from the feet to the hips, do you have like a process or maybe a starting point for people who need to loosen their hips? Because I know I work with a lot of athletes who have some sort of lack of mobility in the hip area. And probably from sitting all day. Most of the people I work with do have a job where they sit all day. I mean, a lot of people have that job. So how would you walk someone through maybe loosening up that hip a little bit?
First thing, I'm just going to put them into a little 90-90 position where they're sitting on the ground and front leg is in sort of a 90 degrees and back leg is in a 90 degrees. So it's it's called a 90-90 hip opener. Okay. And just can they even sit in that position? And you'd be surprised at how many people can't sit there with a tall spine, that you'll see them bowing off, to the left or to the right. And, that right there, I love to show them because it's like you have a low back issue. Look at, your low back is changing because the hips are unable to move how they're supposed to. So you wonder where the low back pain comes from. It's like the lack of mobility in the hips. And so, if the lead leg is in complete external rotation, the back leg's into internal rotation. So it's now trying to teach your body how to control those positions at end ranges. And then once you can sort of get yourself into those end range positions and think tall spine, then we can start to, create movement and, tension, under time and start changing actually the physiology of what the hip is doing.
And if someone wanted to prevent, future problems, do you think that a standing desk is a good way to go?
Standing desk is okay, and the only thing with standing desk is you stand now, right? So it goes back to just the movement. I'll teach people in here, heck, I want you sitting, I want you kneeling, I want you crouched on your toes, I want you kneeling on your knees, I want you standing, I want you staggered stance. So, I'm trying to get these people to, again, just create that movement as much as they can. So, again, the standing desk is great for, decreasing low back issues, but it's not going to be a fix.
Okay. And so there's just constant movement. Maybe stand for a little while, maybe sit, with your laptop on the ground and, just constantly moving around.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. I think I kind of do that I start with a standing desk, but I might end up sitting on the floor, but that I've never done it for, mobility reasons or anything. I just kind of get bored of what I'm doing. And
Well, that's good. That means you're going to move.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man, I'm going to completely shift gears here
Sure.
on you. This is a question I like to ask a lot of my guests. And so say there's a nationwide curriculum implemented. The president calls you up and says you're responsible for one chapter of the book. So every single child in America will have to read your chapter and be tested on it and pass this test before they can graduate high school and pursue any sort of further education. What would your chapter be about?
Oh, man. I think my chapter would be on, as kids, right, keep the movement going. Because what I love about kids, and I talk about this to, my clients all the time, is kids they never have to warm up. If I don't know if you have kids or not, but I know my kids, it's like I watch them go and they jump onto a playground. They don't sit there and say, well, I need to do 5 minutes or 10 minutes of a warm up before I go play. And it's like, the playground is the best place for them to get their entire body to work. So for, rehab purposes on my end here, it's like, hey, I want you to go to a playground and go play. So I think that the movement aspect and keep it going, because kids are moving all the time. They are now becoming more and more sedentary because of the iPads and whatnot, but it's like, keep moving, move.
Yeah, I do have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and yeah, they don't ever really have any sort of warm-up routine before they go out and play. Do you think that adults can get to that level if we're constantly moving like children, like we could, cut out the warm-up or cut it down or something?
I definitely think so. I mean, that's something that I really work on right now is as my day goes on, it's, I'm really always trying to prime my body as the day goes on. So when, again, like I said, it's when I do work out, I only have maybe, 5 minutes at most, but it's priming my system. It's not like a warm up where I'm getting, sweaty or whatever. It's like, no, my system's ready to go, and all right, I'm going to go lift. So I definitely think we can do it. It's also changing a mindset, because for however long, right, we always thought, well, in order for me to work out, I have to warm up. Well, again, what is a warm up actually supposed to be doing? Is it just getting you sweaty, or is it actually priming the nervous system to be ready for you to actually do the lift that you're getting ready to do?
All right, and how about you and your daily routines? Because I think that you really have this, we kind of talked about your fitness and what you're doing flow, but do you have any other daily habits or routines that play into your overall health?
So I get to work at least 30 minutes before my first client, and that's sort of like my meditative process. I come in, I pretty much do like the same rounds through my office as I, turn the lights on, and that's sort of me getting into my flow, if you will. So that's my meditative, my 20 minutes, my 30 minutes where I'll come in, I'll sit at my desk, again, go through the same sort of movements and the same motions and get myself prepped and ready to go for my day. Sort of all other external thoughts are out. It's just me focusing on sort of what's at hand and check some breathing, patterns. That's something that I'm big on as well as, breathing habits, making sure that, body is ready to go for my work, again, not just for, the exercise that we typically do, but, my job for the day.
Okay, and so you're at work and people start rolling in, and it sounds like you work with a very diverse client group. Would you say that's true?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And what do you think, do you work with a lot of CrossFitters in particular?
I do. Yeah, I've got 2 offices. My second office is inside, Morgan Hill CrossFit. So I definitely see, a ton of CrossFitters as well, especially right now with the open starting. So
Yeah, and is the big thing that you're stressing with them movement, or do you try and get specific, like helping them with the open, or should I say good movement, or do you try to get specific helping them with the CrossFit Open or particular workouts, or do this when you're going overhead, anything particular?
combination of both. Obviously we want them to do well, in whatever category that they're doing. But the overall picture is to get them to move better, and I, again, just like your podcast, I always tell them, I want you to be a better human. I don't want you to be more robot. I want you to be more human. And, more human means you need to move more human. So yes, we cover the spectrum depending on sort of what their goal is.
And this is something you said you did in your personal fitness routine, so I have to ask, these like flow routines, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about those a little bit? Maybe some listeners have never heard of that before. I want to make sure they know what it is, and maybe you could explain it and the benefit of doing these routines.
So I've got two different flow routines I do. I have a mental flow that I try and get myself into, and like I'm reading the book right now, The Rise of Superman, and that right there really goes into the state of mental flow through whether extreme athletes and just business people. But then also more of a physical flow. There is animal flow, who was developed by Mike Fitch, and that's just basic, ground-based patterns, but all body weight. And, how can you control your body through movement? And the next one I do is Kin Stretch, which was from Dr. Andrea Ospina, who's a chiropractor out of Toronto. And that right there is really getting your joints to move, at the capsular level, and then again, the muscles and stuff, will loosen up as well. But that's sort of what my flow is, and getting my body to move how it's supposed to. So my shoulders can move and my spine can move and my hips can move and my feet and whatnot. So I know once my body's able to flow how it's supposed to, I can sort of attack anything I want because my body is able to do it. And versus going, man, I can never get into this pattern here because my hip just won't allow me, or, my knee won't let me go deeper, or my shoulder, I can't go truly overhead. So I'm going to compensate through my mid back. So I'm always taking my body through checks and balances.
And I know that there's almost, there's some people that that's all they do, body weight, flow routines, and maybe some gymnastics thrown in there and whatnot.
Yeah.
But how do you think the barbell fits in? Do you think it's something that we should be using, or do you think we don't really need it?
You can definitely use it. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a place for everything. It just depends on what you want as a person. I use it now. I've got, a Olympic weight set here at the office. So what's fun for me is I'll go out there and I'll play with it. And, I'm working on squatting, with weight obviously on my shoulders, but feet together all the way down, and then trying to kick my leg off into a pistol squat, with, again, it's not a lot of weight. It's a bar and 2 10s on each side, but it's still trying to create that control factor, going all the way down with feet together and then kicking out into a pistol, pulling the foot back and being able to stand. So that's just the whole flow part on my end, that I know every joint has to work how it's supposed to in order for me to do that, or injury is going to happen. And again, I've already, had the back surgery, so never want to have that happen again.
That's pretty impressive. So you're saying feet together, squat all the way down, and then leg out, and then back, and then stand back up.
Yep.
That's awesome, man. That's pretty impressive. That's some mobility right there.
Yeah, and it's a lot of that mobility, but just to try and get someone to squat with 2 feet down, that's a hard thing to do as well.
That's what I was thinking when you first said that. I was like, yeah, squatting with your feet together all the way down, that's pretty hard. And then you're like, and then I kick my leg out and do a pistol.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole nother level. That's pretty awesome.
So that's teaching the pistol from the ground floor up.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And do you do anything else with the barbell?
So I have a routine that, like last night, what I did some push presses. I did some, supinated rows. I did, an incline bench, squat, deadlifts. So yeah, I do a ton of stuff with it.
And do you do any stuff with kettlebells?
I do. Yeah, I've got a full set of kettlebells here as well. I think what I like to do is what does my body feel like it needs for the day? And, I've been on sort of a little, doing some programming. But same thing with like my nutrition. I really, okay, what do I feel like I need for today? Do I want some kettlebells? I'm going to go do some swings and, some overhead walking and, or deadlifts with them or whatever. Same thing with the barbell or dumbbells. I've got bands here. I've got exercise balls. So, sort of each day I'll just sort of morph into a sort of a routine that I think that I want to do. And then I'll just, pick and choose sort of the outer layer of the nucleus, if you will, and just have fun with it.
That sounds like a pretty fun routine. Just kind of, what do I need? I'm going to execute. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go back to chiropractic care, kind of big picture. We've kind of hit on imbalances and more of the sports performance. How do you feel like chiropractic care plays into the overall health of a person?
So I think chiropractic in general can definitely play, overall health just because they're keeping the joints moving. I'm a big advocate, obviously, for our profession, but I'll be the first one to speak out against it as well. And because we're stuck in the past, as a collective whole, as a profession. Something I talk about. I was in Las Vegas this past weekend at the big Parker convention, and some of the chiros that come up and then we're talking, I'm like, at what point did MDs stop leeching patients because they knew it really wasn't working? And so same thing with our profession. It's like, at what point do we keep saying that we're adjusting this elusive subluxation that's out there? It's like, well, let's get the body to do what it's supposed to be able to do, and not just the spine, but everything, and so that's the approach that I try and take here is how can we get your body to be, a better moving specimen? And that's sort of the goal versus, okay, come in, let me adjust your spine, I'll see you in 2 more days. And let me adjust your spine, I'll see you in 2 more days. Well, that's just passive. I'm trying to create this active model where I don't need to see you ever again. I'm going to teach you and educate you what you need to do so you can go out and do it on your own. And when you can't do it, inevitably every athlete's going to injure themselves again. Come on back. Let's reassess you. Let's see what you were doing wrong. And let's give you, these practices to make your body move better and, go live your life again.
I think that's phenomenal because I've definitely seen most of my encounters with chiropractors have been the former of what you were saying, just constant adjustment of the spine and then, I'll see you in 2 days type thing.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking, I live in Dallas. So, I mean, if I'm looking for a new chiropractor, what kind of questions should I be asking them if I'm trying to get someone who's more like you? Or is there, someone like, not specifically in Dallas, because I want asking this question for the listeners as well, but
Sure.
Is there something that I should be looking for or questions I should be asking to make sure I get someone who's more in line with your thoughts and ideas?
I think, the big thing that I do get, and again, I saw that this weekend, was I had so many people that said, oh, I'm a sports chiropractor. I'm a sports chiropractor. I'm like, okay, you tell me, what does that mean as a sports chiropractor? Well, I adjusted his spine. I'm like, but you also adjusted that 80-year-old lady too. Does that mean you're an old lady, chiropractor too? And it's asking the right questions of, okay, are you movement based? Do you even know what movement is? And if I'm moving wrong and I have pain in my low back, is it because I have a low back issue? Or is that just the symptom? And now we become, more of that symptom chaser. So, the other part is are they going to put you on some degree of treatment plan? I need to see you 3 times a week for the first 6 weeks, and then we'll go to 2 times a week. It's like, well, why is my body doing that? When I go see the dentist, right, I'm not going in every other day so they can keep cleaning my teeth because I brush my own teeth.
Right.
So it's a matter of, are they doing it for your interest or is it for their interest? And I do tell people this all the time, like, heck, if I never ever see you again, at least you leave this office more educated, because you may not agree with everything that I tell you, but this is what I'm going to tell you, and this is what you're doing wrong. And I show them exactly what they do wrong. And then, this is what we can do to help correct you. And I want you to do this on your own. So I'll see you in a week from now and you got homework to do. So do that homework. And I expect things to be done, or changed by next week.
That's awesome, man. I think to be honest, you've already kind of changed my my thoughts on what I should be looking for. And
Your
it's
chiro's going to hate me for that one.
yeah. Don't worry, I won't mention any names or anything. But no, I think that your approach is really awesome. But I did want to ask one more question about maybe sitting on the ground and what you think that does specifically for people.
Well, when you sit on the ground, how long can you really sit in one position on the ground before it gets uncomfortable? A minute, maybe 2 minutes. So as you're changing your position all the time, what's the tissue going to have to do? Right? It has to adapt to new challenges, or new positions. And those new positions over time, the tissue is going to start to loosen up, or it's going to be like, okay, he's doing this position again. All right, we're going to stop fighting him, on this position. Let's start to loosen up and let's start to go with, whatever said position is. I mean, it's just a continual change, and you look at like cats and dogs, and what do they do all day long? They sleep, but every single time they get up out of their bed, what do? They stretch, so they stretch maybe 50 times a day, but cats and dogs never go to, for the most part, don't see chiros, PTs, they don't foam roll, right? They're not getting massages, but they stretch all day long. And this is why if you have a dog, right, you can take a ball and you can throw that ball and it's going to go from 0 to 60. It never warmed up. It never had to sit there and say, oh, well, hold on a second, let me warm up first before I blow my hammy out because I'm going to go sprint.
Right.
So again, you go back to that, that ground-based, sitting. It's your body is always continually moving. So that's sort of what the basis behind me getting, or the challenge for people, here on the podcast, but also, in my own clinic. This is what I give people all the time now.
And I love that challenge. There's so much behind it, and I really like your overall message of just move. I think that's incredible, and I think it's a very very valuable takeaway for me and anyone else listening to the podcast. But I do want to ask kind of one big question. Is there anything that you would like for people to know about your profession, your career, anything that is kind of not widely known, or we kind of talked about people being scared of it, but just something you wish people knew about chiropractic care?
I think going in with an open mind. A lot of people come in here and they already have an opinion as to what they think is going to happen. And again, like I said, what we do here is such a small percentage. But again, keeping that open mind and asking the right questions, right? And knowing that, hey, when you go into, whether it's a chiro, it's a PT, it's a massage therapist, right? I mean, we already have these preconceived notions as to what we're going to get, out of each one of these. But again, ask the right questions. Go in there, and something I, again, tell my clients is ask why. You should always be asking why. Why this? Why this? Why this? Why is, if you're going to go see a PT, why is this protocol that you just gave me on a piece of paper, why is that going to fit for me? Because you made that protocol for someone different. And why, when you come to the chiropractor, why do I have to see you 3 times a week for 6 weeks? Why is that going to get me better? And what happens at the end of those 6 weeks if I'm not any better? Do I get my money back? Or again, same thing with massage therapist. Why am I tight, 30 minutes after I get, an hour massage with you? So if those people can give you those right answers, or point you in the right direction, then I think that opens a door, just for everyone, for that matter.
That's great, man. All right, I'm going to move on now to the quick fire questions of the show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, man. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Hardest workout it's called Kin Stretch. And Kin Stretch was developed by Andrea Ospina and Dewey Nielsen. It was an hour-long workout. We sat on a yoga mat, and they completely obliterated like every joint in the body. And by the end, it's like I was up at the Nike headquarters taking this Kin Stretch, this course, or it was the FRC to begin with, and I had to go sit on an airplane after that and talk about a brutal airplane ride, because my body was already so taxed, and yet it's like we didn't move. We were on a yoga mat for like an entire hour, but it was slow, controlled movements at 0% resistance all the way to max effort, 100% resistance through your end ranges of motion. And that was probably one of the hardest workouts I've ever done.
I'm going to definitely have to check that out. It sounds very, sounds fun in a Good way, bad way.
It was, yeah, it's a good way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I taught it because I did the kin stretch at the Morgan Hill CrossFit, and they called it my torture class.
Right.
And, you know, it was every Wednesday night or Thursday night they would come in like, okay, I'm ready for an hour of torture. And again, it's just taking your body through ranges of motion that you never thought you could actually get to.
All right. In your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Mental toughness. Wow. Mental toughness. I think, again, for me, you know, as my profession here, is getting people's ability to change their habit. And the habit is, and I hear this, I'm just too busy to do this. I'm just too busy to do, you know, whatever it is. It's like, well, I haven't met the busiest person yet. You know, so changing those habits that we deem important, you know, but yet they wanted to get rid of pain. You know, well, it's not a priority then. So making a priority and, you know, making that priority in your life, number one, versus going, well, it's a priority when I think about it. So yeah, changing that up.
So the ability to change habits or working on that actively?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I 100% concur with that. That's like, I mean, it's hard for me to do. It's hard to get other people to do. Breaking a bad habit is awful, and developing a new one's pretty challenging as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, if you could have only one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One piece of equipment. I mean, my own body is my own equipment, but if I had to pick something, I'd probably take a kettlebell.
Okay.
It's just something that you can grab, you can farmer walk, you can throw overhead, you can do so much stuff just with a single kettlebell. And, you know, a piece of equipment, I think that's probably what I would utilize.
I think that's awesome. All right, man, here's the question. So you ready for it? It's best advice you have for becoming a better human. This is 100% open-ended.
Better human is always move. Stop being stagnant, you know, get up and move. And listening to your body. Your body is going to tell you when you need to move. You just have to listen to it. And I think that we don't listen to our bodies anymore, whether it's nutrition, it's exercise, it's, you know, daily routines. But our bodies are always sending that signal of whatever it is. I need more greens. I need more fat. You know, I need to move. I've got a low back issue, figure it out. So I think it's listening to yourself and really paying attention to what your inner self is telling you.
All right, man. I really appreciate that answer. Now, I do like to, you know, give everyone an opportunity to learn more about you, where they can learn, you know, about what you're doing, you know, a little bit more about your methodology or anything. Where can people go to do that?
So I'm not big on Facebook, but I do a lot of Instagram stuff, and that's just Premier Spine Sport. That's my IG. You know, me and some other guys, we do a lot of teaching, you know, around the area. You know, the rock tape's a big one. Yeah, that's I mean, if you're in the Bay Area, you know, that's sort of where I'm located here in, you know, San Jose. Yeah, that's you can always, you know, email or and whatnot in my, you know, my website at premierspineandsport.com. Yeah, that's sort of the big one right now.
Perfect, man. Well, I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
your best. Losers always whine about their best.